Hi, I'm Andrea McLean and welcome to the This Girl is on Fire podcast, where I bring you conversations with women who have one thing in common. They are on fire. You will hear how they got to where they are in life, how thinking differently about their circumstances helped them, whether that was to overcome hardship, discover their calling, or achieve success. You will also hear what their greatest life lessons have been, what their definition of living is, and how they feel when they're truly thriving. Welcome to this month's podcast, where you are in for a treat as we bring you This Girl is on Fire's greatest learnings. You will hear from incredible women like Jo Malone, Marisa Peer, and Saira Khan as they discuss what their greatest life lessons have been. The answers will move and inspire you.
Honestly, that anything can happen. I think it's to have goals and ambitions and to have aims in life, but to be prepared that the rule book needs to be ripped up, started over again, and don't be scared of that. I think I was probably quite scared of that because I was on like I've said in this pod, I was on this career pathway. I was on this like very aggressive, you know, in a positive way, a career trajectory to headship. And I had no other thinking beyond that. You know, when you are so ambitious and you are so like eyes on the prize, and like you just do it, don't you? Now there's nothing wrong with that, because actually, you know, you can achieve some amazing things by having that kind of very clear attitude. But I would say I never thought, what happens if I didn't do it? Which, to be honest with you, had cancer not got in the way, that's what I would be doing. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, I know that that's what I would be doing, and I'd feel really proud of it. But I look back now and I don't feel not proud for the fact that I haven't done it, because since then I've done so many other things that I never even would have considered. I never ever thought I could do them. And some people go, oh, you're really pleased that you got cancer. No, I mean, I would give up everything in a millisecond, but I wouldn't give up the attitude that is given me in terms of being prepared to go outside the box and not being scared not to have a plan all the time, because I lived by my plan, and that's why I still have to have a timetable in my life. I still have to have a structure, and I think there's good in that. But to recognize it's okay when actually everything goes wrong. It's okay. It will be okay. She says, okay, it will be okay.
It just, sometimes you need to change your definition of okay.
Yeah, but you also just sometimes need to change your pathway, and you realize that actually, like, if you have to start again and it has to be a different goal, then that's okay as well. Because you find happiness in that, and you find like a new sense of, I suppose, rejuvenated spirit sometimes, and you realize, you know, hang on a moment, like, whoa, kind of, I was so narrowed in terms of my thinking. Funny enough, if I ever decided to go back into teaching now, I realize I could go back in where I left off pretty much, but also I realized I would be such a better head teacher now than I would have been, because I think it's that life experience that you sometimes forget about, in terms of it can make you better, and those failures, whatever they look like, are the things that build us up. So
Oh, the biggest life lesson I learned was not to let in other people's opinions. I remember I was about 20 and a doctor was telling me that I would never get pregnant. And even if I did, I would never carry a baby to full term because of an issue they diagnosed me with, which turned out not to be true. I remember thinking, I better not let this in, because if I let this in, it will affect my whole life. And I've had several times when people have said something, oh, you'll never do that, that's not going to work. I remember my lawyer saying, do you really want to take your business to America, the most litigious place in the world? I'm like, yes, I'm going. He said, don't go. I said, I've already got my ticket. Because when someone says no, I always think they can say no. No, you can't have a baby. No, you should. No, you can't go on stage. No, you're not going to recover from this illness. I've heard all of those things. But I was the one who thought, shall I let that in or shall I not let it in? And not letting it in was one of the best things I've ever done.
feel braver. I feel more courageous. I feel I'm so engaged with creativity and not being frightened to use paintbrushes to paint people, or to create tapas bars for your nose, or do things different. I'm not doing it differently to try and be different. That's the mistake I made with Jo Loves in the beginning. I made it a red box to try and be different. You can't not be who you are. You've got to be true to yourself, because when you're true to yourself, my brand is an extension of my personality and who I am. So, but when I look at the things I do now, and this year is a very pivotal year for us, and it will be very clear by the end of the year what I'm talking about. It's that brave girl inside of me, or woman, should I say now? I'm not a girl any longer. I'm in my 50s, but that brave woman that just refused to quit, refused to go away, refused to listen to other people's opinions and who she should be, and went out and created my own destiny. So I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life right now.
Do you feel on fire?
I feel on fire. I feel I'm going to set the world on fire. I want to change the world in which we live. And I don't think there's ever been a part where I have felt this adventure opening up for me. And I truly believe not only am I on fire, but I can hand a baton of opportunity and cause the world to be on fire as well.
It will be that moment that I talked about before, where you want to blame everybody else for your problem or for your hurt, or I wanted to blame everybody else for my hurt, and then realize that everything seems out of control in this moment. I feel helpless. I feel dumped into a big black hole, but actually it's me that has to get myself out of here. And once you realize that, it's powerful when you can take back the control of yourself and learn and look at what you're responsible for in life. It changes everything. And then the second thing is learning to love myself. That's huge.
My biggest learning is probably living life with integrity, doing things for me and not for everybody else. Because when you do things for other people, you don't live a truth. You don't live your true life. And I think it's really important to know what it is you want. Very often we sort of, especially when you've got children and big families, you sort of put everybody else first. And, it's like what they say on an airplane. If you've got a child, put the mask on yourself first before you help the child. And that, to me, every time she says that, or he says that on a plane, it's such an analogy for life for me. You've got to save yourself before you can save anyone else. And that for me it's really key.
I think my greatest learning has been having children, and just the kind of slings and arrows of life, really. I think my greatest learning came from having children, because I had children quite late, not nowadays, but relatively late in my life. And I think it was a massive learning curve for me in terms of just learning how to sort of, navigate through life and deal with it all. That was the biggest, I guess, learning change for me, was that, because it was a job that I had books on it, but you're just like, this is just a job that nobody teaches you. Like, it's not something you learn. It's like an instinct, but it's not necessarily an instinct you're even aware of in the beginning. Everybody spends your life going, oh my God, you'll know, oh my God, when you're a mum, it's like instinctive, it's this. And I remember thinking, no, but there's nobody kind of in my ear going, Emma, burp her now. Or, like I was waiting for the manual. So I think for me, it was a big learning curve to kind of trust my instincts, go with my gut, which is what I've learned to do.
I think being a mum, I really do. I think it certainly made me better at my job, that's for sure. It made me much less selfish, much less driven in a career way. And I certainly think that I learned so much, and it made me better because I had more empathy. When you're interviewing somebody like, Madeleine McCann, for example, would have been 18 now, and that just breaks your heart. And talking to her mum and dad, I wouldn't have been able to do that as well without thinking to myself, putting yourself in their position and just thinking, oh, I don't know what I would have done. But certainly I think being a mother has, and it's not for everyone. And I know that, but for me, it was just like, this is what, when she came into the world, I just looked at her and thought, now I get it. That's what it's all about. That's the wee missing piece, in the jigsaw. And I would have loved to have more children. It just wasn't to be. But I do feel very blessed. She's a good kid.
I think it's that you don't have to be all things to everybody. And actually, by taking back what you do and just by being good to yourself is enough. And then you kind of like in turn then good to everybody else, and you can give back. So I think it's just goodness.
I suppose my biggest learning is that just living is, one, paying it forward. It's also just making the most of what you have at the time you have it. Because I remember when our kids were both at uni and we suddenly were in this empty nest, and we're like, oh my God, finally we get an empty nest, and we're just gonna do this. We created all these huge plans, which we never, COVID meant that we couldn't do all of them. But now they're back home, and it's like I'm thinking, I'm glad they're home. It's just about just making the most of every opportunity and just live joyfully.
I think the SAS experience was my biggest learning, that now as a grown-up woman who's set herself goals and objectives, is to realise when you've hit them and to start enjoying them. So yeah, I think that it was that moment in SAS where actually you don't see this on screen, but I said to Kieran Dyer, I went, Kieran, I don't know what I'm doing here. I've just realised that I don't need to fight anymore. And that is a learning, to realise that, hold on, all of that stuff that all of those, that fighting, that innate desire to keep proving yourself, to keep fighting, you don't need to do that. Now you need to change into the person that can relax, that can chill out, that can take a step back and appreciate what you've made and enjoy it and share it with others.
What I realized is when I initially wanted to get into business, and I don't think a lot of people admit this, is that I wanted to get into it to be rich. Like I wanted money, I wanted the success, I wanted all that brought. And I think a lot of us get into business with that intention. But I realized that actually, and this is how I'd explain it, that I actually said by the time like I hit X goal, if it was £1 million a year, I'll go and buy myself like a £5,000 handbag, something ridiculous to sort of, signify the success. Like this, every time I look at this handbag, I'll remember what I've achieved. And I reached that goal. I went into the shop and I just realized I didn't even want to buy it, because at that point I hadn't really made my mark of what I really wanted to do. And that was impact people. And I still don't deserve that handbag because I've not actually impacted enough people yet. But I know the day that I walk into that store and that I feel sort of I've really achieved my goal, that's the day I'll buy it. And that's been my biggest learning, is coming from the place of service rather than the financial benefits. And, the financial success is just part and parcel of actually serving people. It took me a long time to realize that it's about service of people. And I can now say that with conviction that I believe it rather than just saying it as a line.
Thank you for joining me today. Remember, you have the power to think differently too, about yourself, your life, and your future. How you choose to live is all in your head and in your hands.